Welcome to my channel. Before this story begins, imagine losing everything you worked for in a single month: your job, your friends, your dreams, and even your faith in yourself. Imagine standing alone at midnight, looking at the sky, wondering whether your life will ever change. But what if the worst day of your life secretly carried the answer to your greatest future? And what if, hidden inside pain, there were 15 moments capable of transforming an ordinary person into someone unbreakable? Stay with me until the end of this journey, because somewhere in this story, you may discover the lesson that changes your own life forever. There once lived a young man named Adrian. He was not wealthy, powerful, or famous. He lived in a tiny apartment at the edge of a crowded city and spent every day chasing dreams that seemed far beyond his reach. Every morning before sunrise, he left home with hope in his heart and returned late at night believing that tomorrow would finally reward his efforts. His greatest dream was simple. He wanted a peaceful life, a loving family, and the satisfaction of knowing that his hard work had meant something. For years, Adrian sacrificed everything. He worked overtime, saved his money, and trusted the people around him. Yet, life had prepared a different path for him. The first turning point came when the company where he worked suddenly shut down without warning. In a single afternoon, hundreds of employees walked out carrying boxes, confusion, and broken hopes. Adrian told himself it was only temporary, but weeks passed, and every interview ended with rejection. The second turning point arrived when his closest friends secretly used Adrian's business ideas to build his own company, leaving Adrian behind without explanation. Betrayal cut deeper than failure. Then came the third turning point. The woman Adrian planned to marry looked into his eyes one evening and quietly admitted that she no longer believed in their future together. Within 30 days, Adrian had lost his career, his friendship, and the person he loved most. The city that once inspired him suddenly felt cold and unfamiliar. Night after night, he lay awake asking himself the same painful question: why is everything falling apart? His thoughts became darker with each passing day. He stopped answering calls. He stopped smiling. He stopped believing that tomorrow could be better. One rainy evening, unable to carry his sadness any longer, Adrian packed a small bag and left the city without any destination in mind. That decision became the fourth turning point of his life. He walked for hours through silent roads, crossed empty fields, and followed a narrow path into the mountains. Just before sunrise, exhausted and lost, he discovered a small cabin hidden among ancient trees. Smoke rose from its chimney, and outside stood an old traveler calmly chopping wood, as if the world contained no worries at all. The old man looked at Adrian and smiled. "You have traveled far," he said softly, "but the heaviest thing you carry is not on your shoulders. It is inside your mind." Adrian froze. No stranger had ever understood his pain with such simple words. For the first time in months, he sat beside someone without pretending to be strong. The old traveler offered him warm tea, and together they watched the sun rise over the mountains. That morning became the fifth turning point. As golden light spread across the valley, the traveler pointed toward the horizon and asked, "Do you know why the sun rises every day?" Adrian shook his head. "Because life gives every person another chance, even when they believe they no longer deserve one." Those words stayed in Adrian's mind. Throughout the day, he helped the old man repair fences, collect water, and prepare food. Yet, what surprised him most was the man's peace. Despite living with very little, the traveler laughed easily and carried himself with quiet strength. Late that evening, Adrian finally asked the question burning inside him: how can someone remain calm when everything goes wrong? The old traveler placed another log onto the fire and replied, "Because storms do not destroy people, their reactions do." Adrian stared into the flames, unable to understand completely. The old man continued, "For 7 days, stay here with me. I cannot remove your pain, but perhaps I can show you how to carry it differently." Adrian looked outside at the dark mountains and realized he had nothing left to lose. Without knowing it, he had just stepped into the most important journey of his life, a journey that would reveal 15 unexpected turning points and teach him that true strength is not found in controlling the world, but in mastering the person you become when the world falls apart. The next morning, Adrian woke to the sound of birds and the smell of fresh pine carried by the cold mountain wind. For the first time in many months, his mind felt quiet. The old traveler was already outside, sitting beside a river that flowed between the rocks. Without saying a word, he handed Adrian a wooden cup and pointed toward the rushing water. "Tell me what you see," he asked. Adrian stared at the river for a moment. "I see water moving toward a place I cannot see." The traveler smiled. "Exactly. The river never stops to complain about the stones in its path. It simply finds another way forward." Those words marked the sixth turning point of Adrian's journey. For years, he had wasted his energy fighting against things he could not change. He fought against rejection, betrayal, and disappointment. Yet, none of those battles had brought him peace. The old man picked up a stick and dropped it into the river. The current carried it away immediately. "Most people live like that stick," he said. "They allow every problem, every opinion, and every fear to decide where they will go." Adrian remained silent. Deep inside, he knew that fear had controlled his life for too long. Later that morning, the traveler led him to a steep hill overlooking the valley. Halfway up, Adrian became exhausted. "I don't think I can continue," he admitted. The old man stopped and pointed behind him. Adrian turned around and saw the entire forest glowing beneath the morning sun. The view was breathtaking. "This is the seventh turning point," the traveler said softly. "Sometimes life forces you to climb difficult mountains only so you can discover a perspective you could never see from below." Adrian stood there, speechless. For the first time, he wondered whether losing everything had hidden a lesson he had been unable to understand. That afternoon, the traveler handed Adrian a heavy backpack filled with stones and asked him to carry it through the forest. After only a few minutes, Adrian's shoulders ached. "Why am I carrying this?" he asked angrily. The old man replied, "Because that is exactly what you have been doing with your mind. Every regret, every painful memory, every insult, every failure, you carry them all as if they belong to your future." Then he asked Adrian to remove one stone for every burden he still held inside himself. Adrian removed a stone for losing his job, another for his broken friendship, another for his failed relationship, another for the fear of disappointing his family. With every stone he dropped, the backpack became lighter. That moment became the eighth turning point. Adrian suddenly understood that letting go was not weakness, it was freedom. That evening, they sat beside the fire while darkness covered the mountains. "Tell me," the traveler asked, "what hurts you most?" Adrian stared into the flames. "I think my greatest pain comes from believing that my life should have been different." The old man nodded. "Most suffering is born from the battle between reality and expectation. Peace begins when you stop asking why life betrayed you and start asking what life is trying to teach you." Those words echoed in Adrian's mind long after the fire faded. The next day, the traveler gave him a notebook and said, "Tonight, write down 3 things that still exist in your life." Adrian laughed bitterly. "I have nothing left." The traveler smiled. "Then your first lesson is to learn how much you still have." That night, Adrian sat alone beneath the stars, holding the notebook in his hands. After many minutes, he slowly wrote his first sentence. "I still have my health." Then he wrote, "I still have another chance to begin again." Finally, he wrote, "I still have the ability to become someone stronger than I was yesterday." As he finished writing, tears filled his eyes. The ninth turning point had arrived without warning. For months, he had focused only on everything he had lost, forgetting the treasures that remained. As the moon rose above the mountains, Adrian realized that gratitude was not about pretending life was perfect. It was about recognizing the light that still exists, even in the darkest nights. And for the first time since his world had fallen apart, he felt a small spark of hope returning to his heart. A quiet feeling that perhaps his story was not ending after all, but simply beginning in a way he had never expected. On the third morning, Adrian woke before sunrise and stepped outside the cabin. Thick clouds covered the mountains, and cold wind rushed through the trees. The peaceful valley that had comforted him for days suddenly looked dark and uncertain. The old traveler stood near the edge of a cliff watching the storm approach. "Today," he said, "you will learn something that changes the way you see yourself forever." Adrian walked beside him in silence. They followed a narrow path until they reached an ancient tree standing alone on the mountain. Its branches bent in the wind, yet its roots remained strong. The traveler touched the trunk and asked, "Why do you think this tree is still standing after so many storms?" Adrian thought for a moment. "Because its roots are deep." The old man smiled. "Exactly. People who depend on money, praise, or success for happiness are like trees with shallow roots. The first storm destroys them, but people who build strength inside themselves remain standing no matter what happens around them." Those words became the 10th turning point of Adrian's journey. For years, he had believed that happiness depended on getting everything he wanted. He thought success would give him peace, relationships would give him confidence, and money would give him security. But now he understood that real strength had to come from somewhere deeper. Later that afternoon, the storm finally arrived. Heavy rain fell from the sky, and powerful winds shook the forest. Adrian and the traveler rushed back toward the cabin, but halfway there, they found a frightened boy standing alone beneath a tree. He had lost his way and was crying in fear. Without hesitation, Adrian ran toward him, wrapped his coat around the child, and guided him back to safety. That simple decision became the 11th turning point. As they sat inside the cabin, warming themselves beside the fire, Adrian realized something surprising. For the first time in months, he had forgotten his own pain because he was helping someone else. The traveler looked at him and said, "Suffering becomes smaller when your heart learns to serve others." Adrian stared into the fire, thinking about those words. All his life, he had focused only on his own failures, his own losses, and his own disappointments. He had never considered that helping others could heal parts of himself. The next morning, after the storm had passed, the traveler took Adrian into a beautiful garden hidden behind the mountains. Some plants were healthy and strong, while others were weak and dying. "What do you notice?" the traveler asked. Adrian pointed toward the dying flowers. "They don't receive enough sunlight." The old man nodded. "And people are exactly the same." He explained that negative thoughts, toxic relationships, and endless complaints slowly steal energy from the mind, just as weeds steal nutrients from the soil. That lesson became the 12th turning point. Adrian suddenly remembered the people who had constantly filled his mind with fear and doubt. He realized that protecting his peace sometimes meant walking away from negativity. As they continued through the garden, the traveler stopped beside a small flower growing between two rocks. "Look at this flower," he said. "Nobody planted it here, yet it still chose to bloom." Adrian smiled. The flower's quiet strength reminded him of his own life. Maybe his circumstances were difficult, but that did not mean he could not grow. That thought became the 13th turning point. For the first time since losing everything, Adrian began to believe that his future could still be beautiful. That evening, sitting beneath the stars, he asked the traveler, "Do you think I can truly start over?" The old man looked up at the night sky and replied, "Every sunrise is proof that endings are often hidden beginnings." Adrian remained silent, letting those words settle deep inside him. He no longer saw himself as a broken man standing at the end of his story. Instead, he saw himself as someone standing at the beginning of a new chapter. The pain had not disappeared. The memories still existed, but something inside him was changing. Fear no longer controlled every thought. Hope had returned. Confidence had started to grow. And as the stars filled the sky above the mountains, Adrian realized that the greatest transformation was not happening around him. It was happening within him, quietly, one lesson at a time. After that night beneath the stars, Adrian knew that his journey on the mountain was coming to an end, but the most important lesson was still waiting for him. Early the next morning, he woke to find the old traveler standing outside the cabin, staring at the rising sun. The sky glowed with shades of gold and orange, and for the first time in many months, Adrian felt something he thought he had lost forever: excitement for the future. The traveler smiled and said, "Today is the final day, and there is one last truth you must understand. Together, they climbed to the highest peak in the valley. The journey was long and exhausting. Sharp rocks cut their path, cold winds pushed against them, and dark clouds gathered above the mountains once again. Several times Adrian wanted to stop, but the traveler kept walking. Hours later, they finally reached the summit. Standing there, Adrian could see forests, rivers, villages, and endless mountains stretching beyond the horizon. The view took his breath away. The traveler turned to him and asked, "What do you see?" Adrian looked into the distance and answered, "I see how small my problems are compared to the world." The old man nodded. "And that is the 14th turning point of your journey. Most people spend their lives trapped inside their fears because they never rise above them. They believe that today's pain will last forever, but life is much bigger than one failure, one heartbreak, or one difficult season." Adrian stood silently as the words settled into his heart. He remembered the man he had been only a few days earlier, angry, broken, and hopeless. He remembered blaming the world for his suffering. But now he understood that pain was not meant to destroy him. It was meant to teach him, strengthen him, and prepare him for a wiser future. As they began walking back down the mountain, the traveler stopped beside a narrow stream and handed Adrian a small wooden compass. "Keep this," he said. Adrian looked at the gift with surprise. "What does it mean?" he asked. The traveler smiled gently. "The compass will not remove storms from your life, but it will remind you that even in darkness you can always find your direction." That moment became the 15th and final turning point. Adrian suddenly realized that life would never be perfect. There would still be failures, disappointments, and painful days ahead. But he no longer feared them. He had discovered something far more valuable than comfort. He had discovered resilience. When they finally returned to the cabin, Adrian packed his small bag and prepared to leave. Before stepping onto the path back to his old life, he turned to the traveler and asked, "Will I ever see you again?" The old man smiled and pointed toward Adrian's chest. "Whenever you choose courage over fear, gratitude over bitterness, and hope over despair, I will be there." Tears filled Adrian's eyes. He thanked the traveler and began the long journey home. Days later, when he returned to the city, people immediately noticed that something had changed. His problems still existed, but his spirit was different. He no longer complained about what he had lost. Instead, he focused on what he could build. He found work, learned new skills, helped people whenever he could, and slowly rebuilt his life one day at a time. Months passed, and Adrian became stronger, calmer, and wiser than ever before. He understood that true peace does not come from controlling the world around you. It comes from mastering the world within you. He learned that storms are temporary, that pain carries lessons, and that even the darkest night eventually gives way to sunrise. Years later, whenever people asked Adrian how he stayed calm during difficult times, he would simply smile and say, "The mountain taught me that strength is not the absence of struggle. Strength is continuing to move forward even when life becomes difficult." And so, his greatest victory was not earning more money or achieving success. His greatest victory was becoming the person he needed to be. Remember this: life will test you. People will disappoint you. Plans will fail. But if you protect your peace, believe in yourself, and continue walking forward, nothing can truly break your spirit. Every ending carries the seed of a new beginning. Every challenge hides an opportunity to grow. And sometimes, the person you become after the storm is far stronger than the person you were before it. So never give up on yourself. Keep learning, keep growing, and keep believing that your best days are still ahead.